So last time we saw the intermediary bodies. I hope, this is not ideology. This is a natural needs of the human nature. A man needs the society of a father and a mother. It's absolutely vital. A man and the family is not sufficient to provide for all its needs. So it needs a greater union. So we saw the intermediary bodies last time, no? Yes. And so we are on the city, yes. So and then at the top is what is called the city in a philosophical sense, in Politeia. The number of citizens in a city is neither less nor more than what is necessary for its autarcy. Than what is necessary for its autarcy. I'm not sure if the term is in English. Autarcy. Autos in Greek is self. Archos is command, leadership, subsistence.
The number
of citizens must be neither less nor more than what is necessary for its autarcy. See, the Swiss, they're not that many, but they have mountains, and so when the Austrians came in to take them over, they were able to whack them. So they came in it was a famous battle. They came in a valley, and the Swiss came from the mountain. They made a flank charge, and one Swiss hero took the lances of the Austrian knights, and then the other ones ran over him, and they split. They broke through the lines of the Austrians. So they have the will to fight. They've got good mountains, and they are tough guys. Or at least they used to be. And so, despite their lack of numbers, they can whack anybody who comes in. Now they can't go to Austria and France to invade. No, that they can't. But the setup is sufficient for them, so nobody messes with them. All right. Now, you see, if Korea was only the end of the peninsula, if it was only Busan and then a few square kilometers, it will be overrun by the north. Because Korea is big enough with 50 million people now, I guess. Well, the north hesitates before it comes in. There's a hesitation. Now in the north is not invaded by South Korea because the guy is a maniac, and he says it's gonna be the apocalypse. I'm gonna reduce South Korea to powder. So South Koreans are intimidated, and also especially they are intimidated by the big brother who is behind North Korea. China wants North Korea. That's basically the idea. So the autarcy of North Korea depends on the support of China. And you see, in Japan, they were much smaller than the Mongol Empire. So the Mongols came, and the divine wind sunk the ships of the Mongol Empire, of the Mongol Yuan emperor. And then some of them were able to land, and then the Japanese built palisades and everything, and they slaughtered them on the beach. So the Chinese went back home. That was the end of the Mongols. Now the Vietnamese also, it's a small nation, but again the Huan armies had to go across the jungle and everything, and they were ambushed. All right. So again, after the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese whacked the Americans. But then the Chinese says, no, we know better. Mao Zedong thought he knew better. Or Deng Xiaoping, his successor. And then they sent the Chinese army there, because the Vietnamese were disrespecting their big brother. So the communists, the Chinese communists went to fight the Vietnamese communists. They came in, but they were ambushed just the same. And they were defeated badly by the Vietnamese, who had now by then a great military experience, So the Chinese were badly defeated. So Vietnam, even though it doesn't seem to be very convenient to have a country which is so elongated like that, Vietnam, it's one autarcic entity. Materially speaking, it is sufficient to be by itself, self-sufficient. Other countries have different means to support themselves. Like Madagascar, nobody invades Madagascar because Madagascar is barren. It's very barren, it's very dry. People are not interested to invade. So that ensures that Madagascar remains, is left alone.
Is there any other war with Empire State?
No other. So you get the idea. It must be sufficiently big, but doesn't need to be huge. If a small country can defend itself. And the country, I just bought the book about Mannerheim, Finland. Well, Finland became an independent country because it had a great leader, and so he was shifting alliances, and so he allied with the Germans for some time, and then he dumped the Germans. He threw them out after use. Then he was pro-Russian. He's a Russian officer in World War I. So Russia had sympathy with him. So Russia left him alone. After some time, Russia started to bother. So he allies with the Germans to throw the Russians out. So he whacks the Russians real bad, and the Russians lost many divisions in Finland in the Winter War, especially. But then after that, the Red Army becomes very powerful and everything. So he cuts a deal with the Russians. Okay, you get your borders back that you like, more or less. I don't like it, but I got no choice. Then I throw out the Germans. So he threw out the Germans because he felt the wind was turning and everything. So, but he did it right on time. He was very intelligent. Because of that one leader, Finland remained an independent country, self-sufficient. So the city differs from others. The city differs from other society. The city differs from other society by an anteriority of nature. By an anteriority of nature. It is naturally anterior and eminent, and it enables the other smaller societies to be. Because its perfection and eminence its perfection and eminence. Its perfection and eminence comes from the fact. Its perfection and eminence comes from the fact that it contains all others. One political, one politics, chapter 1. So 1 Pol 1, 1 POL 1. That's the abbreviation of Aristotle.
I think the electricity for fume.
Yes.
What is again the anteriority of nature?
Anteriority.
Anteriority.
So it's by nature first. It's first in the order of nature. In the order of time, you could say the family was first. You know, it started with Adam and Eve. It started always, with tribes. We can see in ancient history, things starts with tribes. So more or less familiar, but tribe eventually is superseded by the nation. The nation is the extended tribe. See, the Catholic Church contains this place. It contains Carmelite monasteries. It contains the family of Our Lady Monastery in Brazil. Whatever Dom Thomas Aquinas is doing in Santa Cruz in Brazil. Whatever Bishop Williamson and whatever Bishop Four is doing. See, the Catholic Church is much wider, and it contains and it enables all these cells, these organs to live. Like my lungs need the operation of the rest of the body to operate properly. If I am brain dead, my lungs are going to suffer, If my liver dies, the rest of the body dies as well. So it's the liver doesn't live without the lungs either. So it's the body, it's my entire body that ensures the perfection of its parts. So that's why the body has an anteriority of nature with respect to the organs and to the cells. The sign of that is that it has everything necessary to attain its end. The sign of that is that it has everything necessary to attain its end. And that's autarcy. An autarcic entity is something that has everything it needs for its end. For instance, we don't have everything we need for our end. What are we missing here in this seminary for our end? What are we dependent on? A bishop, yeah. It's nice to have a seminary, but we don't have a bishop. So we are not autarcic. We are dependent.
In some sense, autarcy is independent.
Yes.
Independence is
It's self-rule, Auto, archos. Archos means rule. Auto means self. It's self-rule. But autarcy is not just self-rule, it's also self-subsistence. It keeps on going by itself. Independence does express that as well. Now you got three imperfect words that describe the city. I say imperfect. The first imperfect word is the word state. It's the most imperfect word. State. The other one is nation. And the last one is fatherland. The state refers to a directing principle, organized and stable. So it's a stable and organized directing principle. Hence the Latin status. Directing principle of the political society. By opposition to the intermediary bodies and the family society. But state comes from status, stable. Like the Filipino state. It's a mess, but it's there year after year. It's stable. You gotta put up with it year after year. It's not going away. Or the American government. They are bothering everybody in the world, but they're not going away. Not yet. They're a pain. You know? We love the American people, but we wish the American government could be gone. Yes. So there is a stability, and it's a principle. It's a directing principle. It's a control box, like the control box of our electrical system. It's a control box. So it is not the city. You understand? That's why a state is an imperfect word. The state is not an end in itself. It's just a control box. If a state disappears, it's replaced by another state. If China comes here and invade, the Filipino state dies and it's replaced by the Chinese state. Another state will be put in place. So you will still have a nation, but you will not have the same state. Like in France and Germany fought a lot over Alsace-Lorraine. So the place has been switching states over and again until then it's settled now. But there was uncertainty, and after several millions of deaths, then eventually the French and German came to an agreement. And so now it's, but that can change again, you know, if the Alsatians are fed up with François Hollande, that's going to change. See, so the state is just a control box. It is not the politeia. Neither is a nation. The nation is only a union, a moral union. The nation is a moral union. Resulting from a community of race. Race, and in Latin race is said natus. Natus. Bornhood, you know, hence nation. Nations comes from natus. The community of race, or at least culture, language. Historical tradition. Aspiration. Like you can clearly see in Korea. In Korea, it's all Koreans are very much look-alike. You know, they really look alike very much, or the Japanese. So that really cements the Korean political entity. The political entity of Korea is very dependent on the unity of race of these human beings. But it may not be the case in other places. Like the Americans, they are a melting pot. But they still refer about an American nation. Well, it's because they all listen to Elvis Presley, you know, and they all speak American, you know, with different twangs from the south to the north. But there is a community of language, you know. They got their common way of massacring the English language. So there is a community of some sort. There's a historical tradition now that has been built. They had a civil war, which really made a big imprint. They had they went through the Great Depression of 1929 and things like that. World War II, whatever. There's a historical tradition has been building up, so they identify to that nation. They like to put the American flag in their garden, you know. Unlike the Koreans. Koreans don't put a flag everywhere, you know? But aspiration, you know. They believe, you know, in the same principles for the most. So, but they don't have the same community of race. There are different races in the US, and races naturally don't mix. Usually they don't mix. And it's always a problem for the mixed bloods. They don't know what to identify with very much. We don't blame them, but they don't know exactly with which blood they're gonna identify. So it's always causes a problem. So it helps. It does help. We don't say it's a prerequisite. It does help if a nation has the same race. That's the way God has willed it. You know, after the Tower of Babel, man, because of man's pride, God divided man, and the way things are, for the most part, in our human race, is that the people are separate, not just by geography, but they're also separate by language and culture, and also by blood. God's purpose was to separate man in different nations. Go and teach all nations. So it's a purpose of God to have different nations that don't. So you know, the human race is compartmentalized. There are compartments. The population is there. So it spills over with difficulties. There's a backlash now in Germany. The official party has lost the elections. They're gonna lose the elections over and again now because the Germans are fed up. They're being invaded by the Muslims. So the Germans are becoming fed up and everything. Whether they're going to succeed into pushing the invaders out is another question. Now, but you can clearly see those people, those hidden people, who have started to mix the races, are creating problems in Europe. So you just sit there, nice, in your sofas, and watch Europe self-demolition. All right, because they are the bankers, you know, the RSPs and everything. They want trouble. They want the races to mix so that they're gonna profit from the chaos. So we urge, you know, the Koreans to have babies, because otherwise other races are gonna come necessarily. But they are not listening. So the Korean race is in danger now. Be Chinese very soon, a century from now, perhaps, unless we convert Korea. But the nation of Korea is at risk now, because it's the modern ideology hates the concept of nation, but it hates even more the concept of fatherland. That's the most hated concept of the revolution. The revolution likes state. Yeah, they speak about the state and everything. They worship the state as a god. But fatherland, they hate that notion, because it is the nation